Joining us now, NBC News law enforcement and intelligence correspondent Tom Winter, and co-host of the Bulwarks for Your podcast and Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School shooting survivor, Cameron Kasky. All right, latest from you, Tom.
Katie, we're tracking a number of things at this hour, including in that some press conference that we're expecting, by the way, in about 28 minutes from now with police and with the mayor. One of the things that we're still trying to get a better handle on, we're still going through the videos and going through the writings. So just to describe it to folks, they're YouTube videos where there's a number of either journals or they look like journals where there's a number of writings, not all of them in the English language or some sort of Eastern European language that's used. Some of it is in English. And this individual is writing about a whole host of things. Won't get into all the particular details. As we stated last hour, we're not here to do the bidding of this individual so that we can basically put out the information they were hoping to gain out of this shooting, which has killed an 8 and a 10-year-old. You referenced those that are at the hospital, the kids ages 6 to 14. Some of them are in critical condition. 4 needed to be operated on. What investigators are focusing on are these videos, when they were specifically made. There's some dates that are associated with it. The bottom line messaging on this, suicidal thoughts, quote, extremely violent thoughts is how one person in law enforcement phrased it to me. There's a reference to prior mass violence attacks. There's a whole host of different writings, some of it nonsensical. There's a handwritten diagram of the interior of a church, not clear if it's this church. And there's all sorts of things that this individual is muttering and whispering under their breath. So that's the latest as far as the investigation goes. What specific ideology or motivation will be assigned to this? To be determined. There are psychologists and people in law enforcement that are more studied and smarter than me at those type of issues. But it won't, frankly, really matter to those families or to us, because at the end of the day, this is somebody who, as the FBI's behavioral analysis unit has said, this is somebody that so fits the mold of what we see now. Somebody who is hurting and then thinks that the only best option for them is to hurt others. Obviously, I think the rest of the population probably feels pretty differently.
Police said that there was something of a record here?
Very minor, appears to be local traffic stops, things along those type of lines.
Any
no
indication
felonies.
that they were alerted to this individual about having mental health issues, maybe potentially being dangerous, threatening? Right.
Not so far, but that's one of the questions I think the initial press conference really focused on kind of the incident itself. And I think those are some questions that we're still asking, and hopefully we'll continue to get answers with. Some of those searches take a little bit of while. Some can be done instantly. Nothing has immediately kind of popped up on the radar in that regard, but that doesn't mean that something couldn't as more research is done. 3 weapons here used in all, Kitty. What police describe as a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. The rifle, just based on their description of it, appears to be a semi-automatic rifle along the lines of an assault-type rifle. But honestly, those weapons these days can be modified in so many ways. We don't need to get bogged down in the specific description.
Just for the record, Minnesota does have a red flag law, an extreme risk protection order, and it went into effect on January 1st, 2024. So over a year now, it allows a court to temporarily remove firearms from individuals posing a significant danger to themselves or others. All right, Cameron, I hate that this is why we call you, but this is why we're calling you. We are talking about a school shooting. We've talked about so many school shootings since your school was shot, by the way, at the same exact time. What is it now, 10 years ago, 12 years ago? What do you have to say about where we are in this country?
Well, after the shooting in Parkland, what you saw was this unbelievable outpouring of support. And that was a huge part of what propelled my classmates and I to step up and say there are laws that can be passed to prevent shootings like this from happening. But the country has become a much crueler place. The country has become even more desensitized to violence in recent years. I mean, not long ago, there were political assassinations in the state of Minnesota. People were killed in their home by somebody pretending to be a police officer, and that has completely left the public conversation in a way that it just wouldn't have in 2018. So I feel for this community, and I encourage everybody to show them support, because we've gotten to a point where everyone has seen so many of these school shootings. People have seen widespread violence in so many forms across the board, and there just aren't going to be the same support systems. There are organizations advocating for gun violence prevention that also do community building for communities that face something like this. But in general, after the Parkland shooting, after Uvalde, the country had to catch its breath for a moment and showed so much support to these people who were affected. But we're going to stop talking about the shooting within the next couple days.
Yeah.
This administration and the nature of our country right now, there's just too many tragedies on a daily basis for us to give this the attention that it deserves, and it's a shame.
Yeah, there's just so much going on, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be addressed. 7 years ago, I'm sorry, since Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, the shooting. After that moment, and you touched on this a little bit, there was a belief that your generation, as you came of age, as you started voting, as you got into the ether of participatory society, that this would be the generation to change gun laws in America, to change this culture of allowing kids to be targeted and slaughtered and murdered while they were at school. But it doesn't seem like we've gotten to that point. What do you believe is the big issue? Or are there many big issues, many big obstacles in your way, our way?
Well, I think the Democrats see gun violence prevention as a losing issue at this point. I mean, back in the 2019 Democratic primary, you had people like Beto O'Rourke and Eric Swalwell practically running for president on gun control. That was the primary issue they were talking about. This was something that everyone in the Democratic Party was talking about. And I think that since then, we've seen this shift where they have seen how few successful laws were able to be passed and how married the United States public is to this fantastical narrative that they're going to be safer the more guns they bring into their house, that I think a lot of Democrats have given up. And also, my generation, which was supposed to bring this change in the fight against gun violence, has had our brains melted into pudding by misogynists on TikTok. So Gen Z men are now so terribly lost that I'm afraid we are going to see more violent acts by the people who are being programmed by social media algorithms to be angrier at the world, to feel more isolated. And it's something that ought to be extremely concerning. The shift we've seen in Gen Z in the past 7 years since Parkland, I can't believe that, is horrifying. And I truly believed when my friends and I were calling for change that we were going to be the generation that was able to bring it. There were some laws passed at a state level that were fairly strong, although very often guns found at crime scenes were purchased in other states. So state laws are great, but at the end of the day, we need federal law. We need something at the national level for people to truly be safe in this country. Our generation has turned into a social media addled disaster. I still have faith in us. I still believe things can change for the better, but we're certainly not going to be ending gun violence anytime soon. We've got quite a bit more to deal with.